Yo, what's going on guys, it's Cynical and welcome back to another video. Today for you guys, I wanted to talk about Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. The game is set to release June 10th, which means we are literally only around the corner from release, and as it stands, this would probably have to be one of my most anticipated games for 2021. I am a massive Ratchet & Clank fan, have been since day one back in 2002. It's been a little while since we last got a Ratchet & Clank installment, and so in today's video, I wanted to share with you guys the reasons as to why I'm excited for Rift Apart, and why this game specifically has been such a long time coming for fans of the Ratchet & Clank series. This is definitely an important installment. 2016 was the last time we received a new Ratchet & Clank game, which means 5 years later we get the next one. So yeah, it's been a little while. Now, 2016's Ratchet & Clank, which was just simply known as Ratchet & Clank, was used as a form of a reboot for the series to retell the events of the first game in a slightly different manner, but to then also tie in a movie as well, the Ratchet & Clank movie that released later on in 2016. This is probably issue number 1 with the Ratchet & Clank 2016 installment. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved 2016's Ratchet & Clank, but I definitely do have a few issues and gripes. Number 1, it was a bit sad to see that Insomniac Games were sort of rebooting the series, absolutely throwing out all of the story and lore that the series had built up thus far. I'm not saying that Ratchet & Clank overall is a story-heavy game, but most certainly, especially with the future series, there was some decent story and lore there. On the flip side though, I was definitely excited to be able to re-explore a lot of these familiar planets like, of course, Kerwin and Gaspar in more of an HD modern setting. Overall though, I just felt as if the story of 2016, and again, this is not a major part of the Ratchet & Clank games, but the story in itself felt a little bit loose due to the movie tie-in side of things, and I'm glad that this time around they're kind of reverting back to the original canon with Rift Apart. We'll talk a little bit more about this soon. But there's no movie tie-in, there's none of that. It's kind of going back to its roots in the sense of the ongoing continuity. I think one of the biggest parts of a Ratchet & Clank game though is most certainly the weapons, the arsenal. In 2016 I felt personally got pretty damn lazy on the arsenal side of things, with using just so many of the weapons that we've become familiar with throughout the future series, Tools of Destruction, Crack in Time, as well as Nexus, just re-implementing them into that game. It would have been nice to have seen a lot of the old weapons from the very original Ratchet & Clank, as well as just some brand new ones. Well, yeah, we did, there just wasn't a lot of that going on, and at this point for 2016, well, yeah, it was great to get that modern feeling Ratchet & Clank. It was using what I felt was a very stale formula at that point. There was so much more new going on in Crack in Time than there was in the 2016 version of Ratchet & Clank. It looked pretty, it was fun for the most part, but I just feel like as a sort of next-gen or current-gen PS4 version of Ratchet & Clank, it really didn't do overly too much justice to the game. Of course, at the end of the day, it was still a very enjoyable experience, but I am absolutely so thrilled to know that Insomniac, from everything that we've seen with Rift Apart, because we're currently drowning in content, it really seems like they are buckling down with this installment and including a lot of refreshing new stuff in this game. I simply cannot wait. The biggest and most exciting part of this is I think it is continuing on from that original canon. While you don't actually need to have played the previous installments, it does actually take place after Ratchet & Clank Nexus, which was released back in 2013. It takes place a few years after the events of that game, and while it's not going to be heavily connected to all of the future series, Insomniac have mentioned there will be in fact references to the already pre-existing lore that Ratchet & Clank has built up over the course of time. Who knows, with the whole Rift thing going on in Rift Apart, it's very possible that they may actually reference Ratchet & Clank 2016. We're going multi-dimensional and whatnot, so I mean, it's totally possible, but honestly I think at this point Ratchet and Clank 2016 is kind of a done thing, and from here on forward for the series, I think they will stick to the original continuity. I think mentioning Crack in Time is an important point as to why Rift Apart is important. Crack in Time did the Ratchet and Clank series so much justice at the time. It was a time where it almost felt as if the Ratchet and Clank formula was kind of getting stale. It's a formula that has been used time and time again previously, with of course Going Commando, one of the absolute best Ratchet and Clank installments. That was an installment that introduced so much new and so much things needed to make Ratchet and Clank an established formula, but from there on forward it just kind of felt like they were prying in, especially by the time of Tools of Destruction. It just sort of felt as if they were just continually using what worked and was just sticking to it, not experimenting, trying new things. Crack in Time was that one installment that finally, in my opinion, gave the Ratchet and Clank series this refreshing burst of goodness, like a sense of, oh, this is kind of new. Well, yes, we have that already pre-established formula working well here. There's a lot of new to make it almost a new feeling experience. And this is what I feel like Rift Apart is going to do for the series. Crack in Time introduced the whole space travel. Rather than just hopping in your ship and choosing a planet, you literally had to fly your ship to that planet. Within the space of space, there was also little meteors and comet fields that you could get out of your ship and explore for gold bolts. The weapon upgrade system had been completely revamped, with adding different visual upgrades to your guns that would also give you proper enhancements and would change the way the gun or weapon would be used. Of course, this was only for the Constructo-based weapons, but it was still very, very different to what we had previously been used to for any other Ratchet and Clank game. The hover boots were also a brand new mechanic in Crack in Time that really added to the traversal element, which meant that Insomniac could really open up planets, giving a greater sense of scale. Although it was still pretty linear, it just meant that planets were a little bit more wide open. These things were so fun to use as well, and of course they are returning for Rift Apart. So Rift Apart, I feel like, is doing enough of this type of thing. Well, yes, we still have that pre-established formula going on, and I feel like there is a decent amount of new and reintroduced mechanics, enough to make this experience stand out in amongst the rest of the other Ratchet and Clank games. We've already seen within the big demo that we got a few weeks back that worlds are looking that much bigger this time around, probably the biggest that they've ever looked. I think they really nailed this again in Crack in Time, and we got a little bit of it in Nexus, but because of the hover boots, as I said, it really opens up and expands the worlds. But I think on an even bigger scale, while Ratchet and Clank games tend to be quite linear, it looks like there's going to be more of the whole off-the-beaten track type of thing going on, especially with the new pocket dimension system. These are little rifts that you'll be able to find scattered throughout different planets, and they'll essentially act as bonus stages, as Insomniac have kind of described. While a few of them will probably be mandatory and part of the main path, a lot of them, I'm assuming, will also be optional, and with inside of these you'll be able to get extra bolts, take down more enemies, collect rare titanium, and also gold bolts. In a funny sense, they kind of remind me of the comets and whatnot, and the meteors and stuff that you would land on in Crack in Time within space. Those things acted as like little bonus stages. The new maneuverability mechanics really do excite me in this game. First things first is the wall running. So yeah, we're getting wall running in this game, which again can add extra little elements to the traversal side of the planets. Looks pretty cool, it's pretty standard, it's wall running. Ratchet and Rivet can now perform that. There is also then the Phantom Dash. Yes, finally, we have a dodge mechanic in Ratchet and Clank. I don't know how long I have wanted this for. I thought it would be an obvious thing after a while for Insomniac to implement. But here we are, 2021, almost 20 years onwards since the series first started, and we're finally getting that dodge, and it actually looks like it works just like a dodge. It looks like you do get some iframes when performing it. It also looks like you'll be able to use this in the sense of maneuverability as well. If you need to get just a little bit more distance when you're jumping from platform to platform, you can perform Phantom Dash. And on top of that, we also have the Rift Tether. We'll notice like little sort of orange rifts all around the arenas and areas that we're sort of running around whilst fighting baddies, or even to get from one ledge to another. We can use these to actually tether ourselves through into the rift to get to that point. Again, just adds nice extra elements to the whole traversal side of the game, and it's these new mechanics that I've been so wanting ever since Crack in Time, to really freshen up the experience. And that's another thing too, we've got another playable character this time around. Although Rivet of course does work what looks like the exact same as Ratchet in the sense of the moveset. Yeah, sure, we've had Clank in the past, but to have an actual secondary main protagonist that plays to complement the formula as it's intended, just like Ratchet, I think is pretty exciting. From what we've seen, it kind of just looks like Rivet is more of a skin. I don't think that she'll do too much in the gameplay aspect. I don't think there's going to be a core difference between the two characters when it comes to gameplay. But in the sense of the story that will be told in Rift Apart, it's definitely going to add a little bit of extra spice, having two main protagonist personalities going on with Clank right there as the sidekick between. The planets that we've seen so far look really, really cool in Rift Apart, consisting of both old and new, and the variety of which looks really cool in the ways of course, environments, though generally speaking, Insomniac nail the environmental variety when it does come to the different worlds and stuff we're exploring in most Ratchet and Clank games. It's going on really strong here, but yeah, new and old. So the old returning planets seem to be more so focusing on the future series. So far we've seen Sargasso as well as Torren 4. Torren 4 is from Crack in Time, and Sargasso is of course from Tools of Destruction. Sargasso is definitely a future series fan favorite planet. So good to see it returning with the long-necked dinosaur alien creatures there as well. Fantastic, I cannot wait. Of course though, it's not like these planets are one-to-one in the ways of the actual areas that we explored in the future series. They will be different parts of those planets, so it still will remain fresh. We also see the pirate planet return too from the future series. My god, so awesome to see, so cool to see the space pirates back in action. And it also looks like there is just a decent amount of new, which I'm screaming out for. Yes, definitely go ahead and put some old returning ones, especially if it is from the future series. But more so than not, I definitely want some new stuff going on, and we're getting exactly that. The new planets look wicked, like Nefarious City looks wild, dude. Some sort of dark, cyberpunky type environment. But yeah, the environmental stuff that's going on here is just amazing. And of course, like, I don't think we need to talk too much about the visuals. This game is just jaw-droppingly gorgeous. I want to fornicate with it. Probably as of right now, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, even though of course it's not actually out, will be the best demonstration towards exactly what the next-gen system can do. Armor is back, and so it should be in the 2016 Ratchet and Clank, though yes, I know it was following the original, and in the original there were no armor sets or anything like that. But still, you know, Insomniac could have thrown it in there. However, though, yeah, in Rift Apart, we are getting the return of armor sets, and they do actually give you different bonuses and perks. And what's really cool about the armor system, actually, in Rift Apart, is that it looks like you'll be able to change the helmet, the chest, and the boots. In a funny way, this kind of reminds me of Ratchet and Clank Size Matters, the Ratchet and Clank game that not many people talk about, but in that game you could actually change out the different armor parts, and it will give your wrench a different effect. It's probably not to the same degree here, but I'm assuming that the different parts will give you different sort of bonuses. But the armor this time around is looking absolutely wild. Probably some of the best armor I've seen from the series. We've got a little bit of nostalgia going on too. The Carbonox armor from Ratchet & Clank 2, which was the best armor you could get, is going to be in this game. The only issue here with that specific armor is it is a pre-order bonus. A little bit sucky for the people that don't end up pre-ordering the game. It means you'll miss out on that, because that is hands down one of the best looking armors. We've also got like the Praetorian armor, which is a little nod reference to that of Crack in Time, to do with Alistair and the Longbacks elite guards. They wore Praetorian armor, as well as that Captain Starshield armor, a massive nod to Ratchet Deadlock, Ratchet Gladiator. So cool, dude, in amongst a lot of other cool looking armors as well. Another unfortunate thing though is when speaking towards the armor, just like the sort of pre-order one with the Carbonox, there's a lot of deluxe edition armors, which I kind of don't like. There's 5 different, I believe there's 5 different deluxe edition armors. So yeah, that kind of rubs me a little bit the wrong way. Maybe 1 or 2 would be fine, but 5, my god, dude. However though, the armor system, it's back. Thank God, looking really groovy. And finally, let's talk about the weapons. Probably one of the most important aspects of any Ratchet & Clank game, the arsenal. I'm so thrilled to see that it seems like we have a decent amount of new weaponry when it comes to Rift Apart, because talking back on the Future series, by the point of 2016 that we were kind of talking about, it just sort of seemed like they were just continually rehashing the future weapons again and again and again. And although yes, we do have a few of the future weapons within Rift Apart, it just seems like there's going to be a decent amount of new. Sure, yes, I know, I understand, we've still got the same types of weapons like the shotgun, the bomb glove, the pistol, but they all kind of seem to work different. As well as that too, with the PlayStation 5 haptic feedback with the triggers, half pressing down the trigger will do one thing with a weapon, and completely pressing down the trigger will do something else with the weapon. So I think that in itself is going to give a nice breath of fresh air to the weaponry system of the game. Cannot wait to see all the wackiness that comes along with the weapons. We've seen a decent amount of them. Don't really want to go through each and every one individually because that'd probably take some time, but in the ways of the weaponry, it is looking very spicy. I think it's also important to mention too that Rift Apart will also have an arena system. This has become like a staple point thing for the Ratchet & Clank games ever since Going Commando. So it was a little bit disappointing to see that that didn't come through for 2016's Ratchet & Clank again. Yes, I know it's trying to follow that same original path as the first game, and obviously the first game didn't have an arena system, but they could have swung it. They could have put something in there. So that was really sorely missed for that game. Great to hear that it is back. While we haven't seen the arena system, Insomniac Games have mentioned it will be here in the game. So super cool. But that is my big talk about Rift Apart. I've been meaning to do this for such a long time though. I'm kind of glad I waited, only because now we have just so much content towards the game. It was getting a little bit scary there for some time, like we were getting close to the release, and yet it just felt like Insomniac hadn't given us enough information and shown us enough of the game. But it's looking absolutely fantastic. I think this installment will likely go down as one of the greatest Ratchet games. I don't want to speak too soon, but just from everything we know and what we've seen, man, it looks so good. I do believe it will go into my top 3 favorites of all time. Ratchet & Clank 2, as I've pretty much stressed, is my favorite. I absolutely love that one, but I think there may be a contender here. I don't know. Again, don't want to speak too soon, but in the comment section down below, guys, please do let me know what your current thoughts on Rift Apart are. Is this going to be a day 1 pickup for you? I would love to know what you guys think. However, dudes, I'm Cynical. Hopefully you're having a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.